Rolling down the boulevard in the speedboat Corvette, like a tail on a tornado ring to promise soaked in sweat. One hand on the glass pipe, the other on the wheel. Devil riding shotgun, singing, boy, let's make a deal.
This is Groundless, a Justified podcast. This is a podcast where we watch every episode of Justified and then come on here and talk about it. I'm Chris. That man is Randy.
God, a Win Duffy-centric episode is... well, this I guess it really wouldn't be considered Win Duffy-centric, but he does make spend a lot of time on screen this episode.
He absolutely does. We get some great Win Duffy moments here. Some great Mikey moments. It's so good. You know, it's funny.
Really good.
I was reading. As part of my research for what we do here, I sometimes look some stuff up about the episodes, and I was reading somebody who had written some reviews of season 6 back when it was originally airing. And this person who loved Justified up until season 5, basically, was talking about how terrible season 6 was, how, boy, she can't stand Ava, all of these things that I was reading through it. And I'm like, man, I feel like you might be sort of missing the point here. This is fantastic stuff. Now, to be fair, I then did go back. I in order to do something that I needed to do for this episode, I had to go back and watch portions of some older episodes. And what I will say is that the dialogue in season 6 isn't quite as crisp or snappy as the dialogue in season 2 or season 3, or even season 4. I do agree sort of with the critique there, but for her to critique sort of Ava and the performance and the character arc for Ava, I think was unfair, because I think it's a fantastic arc myself.
Yeah. And Ava does seem to spend a lot of time on screen this episode too. She does great. I don't know. I think it's a fair criticism about the dialogue, though. Yeah. I mean, you don't get the little, I don't know how would you describe it, asides, or I don't know, just references to different things as much in this episode, at least.
The pacing is a little different. The delivery is a little different. It's just not quite as justified as Justified gets, but it's still real good, especially when you compare it to the nonsense that we watched over the summer.
That's true. That's fair. Fair. And this is definitely like, I remember the first time I watched it, and I didn't even remember how this episode went, but the ending was definitely, it was good. It's fantastic the way this episode ended.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. It's just let's get the intro out of the way, and then let's get back to that, because I do want to talk about that for a minute. It's we're here to talk season 6, episode 10 of Justified. Only 3 episodes left after this one. An episode called Trust. It originally aired March 24th, 2015. And so, to your point, I was trying to remember exactly what I was thinking when I watched it for the first time too, on March 24th, 2015. And what I thought when the episode ended and Ava had shot Boyd and escaped with the money. I was like, wait a minute. what the hell just happened? And how did we get to this point? And on reflection, you look at it, and they do such a great job in this episode of showing how we get to this point. You see the wheels turning in Ava's head as she's making all of these decisions and left essentially in a position where she has no choice but to do what she did. And it's really well done. I credit to the writers, credit to the directors. Benjamin Cavell is our writer this week. Adam Arkin, our very own Theo Tonin, is the director. Always good for a good episode of Justified. Yeah, our synopsis this week: with Avery Markham and Wynn Duffy's help, Raylan sets up a trap for Boyd, but Ava informs Raylan that he didn't take the bait and offers up a new route to put Boyd away for good. So, what did you when you watched this for the first time? Do you remember kind of what you were thinking?
I thought, you know what? I thought it was a good episode as far as the way that the parts are moving, you know, and especially with Ava, where you see like Raylan has to come up to her and says, "Look, you know, we're out of options. You're basically you're burned as an informant. We haven't gotten any information, and so you're going back to jail." Basically, is what he told her.
Yeah, and not only are you going back to jail, it's out of my hands.
Yeah, which is I don't know if it's a cop out, really. I mean,
it's just a fact, right? I mean, Vasquez wants to bring the weight of the U.S. government down around her ears. How is Raylan supposed to stop that?
Yeah. But and like I said, I think just remembering, or not remembering, but this ending, how this episode ended was fantastic.
Yeah.
And
such a great cliffhanger, man.
Yeah.
I remember like, what? It's gonna end there?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and our guest star this week, we only have one, but boy, is she an important person. I want to talk a little bit about Kay Callan, and it's first name K, just the letter K. No, not K-A-Y or anything like that. I'm not sure if it's short for something. She's Loretta's grand aunt in this episode. And she's been on TV for 61 years, including in 2023 in a show called Poker Face on Peacock or Hulu, I think it is. It's got the woman from American Pie, the one who hit a bunch of people with her car. No, the one who hit a bunch of people with her car. She was only in like the first one, or maybe the first and the second one. She was also in a show called Russian Doll, I think. Natasha Lyonne, I think her name is.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So she's that. I think it's a riff on Columbo, actually, because I think she sort of talks like Columbo, and she's like a human lie detector. That's the whole premise of the show.
Oh, okay.
But I have it on my list to watch. I've heard good things about it. But getting back to Kay Callan, so her first credit on screen, 1962, in an episode of a show called Route 66. But I think more importantly, she was in an episode of All in the Family, which was called Cousin Liz. And Cousin Liz is an important episode of television because she actually portrayed a lesbian on that show. And she was the longtime lesbian lover of Edith's aunt, who passed away. And there's a whole sequence where they go to the aunt's house, and there's this silver tea service that's worth like $2,000, and that's the thing that Edith stands to inherit from her aunt. And she has a conversation with Kay Callan's character, who explains that, you know, I've had tea with your aunt every day for the last 25 years using this tea service. We're more than just friends. We're together. We were lovers. And this was in 1977, by the way, on broadcast television. And the episode won an Emmy for writing. And by the way, Norman Lear, who was the creator of All in the Family, just passed away. So this is relevant also in that regard. But the belief is the what he said was that he thinks that episode reran on television the weekend before the election in California. And the election in California, where there was an initiative on the ballot called the Briggs Initiative, which would have barred gay and lesbian people from working in public schools. And this was in 1977. And it was defeated And Norman Lear always sort of insinuated that he thinks that the airing of this episode and the rerunning of this episode just before the election was part of what helped to defeat that ballot initiative. So this is, I mean, you know, she's a bit of a trailblazer as far as television is concerned.
God, was that in the 70s? Is that when it was?
1977. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, just think about that for a minute, right? I'm of course far younger than you. I wasn't even born in 1977. I can't even imagine what it must have been like to have, people having a conversation about lesbians on TV in 1977. And, you know, All in the Family blazed a lot of trails. And that was one that had to be pretty interesting to see a reaction to the next day, I'm guessing.
Well, I wonder how people would even. Well, I guess it would maybe be in the newspapers and stuff, but like you would wonder how would people talk about it on Twitter or something? You know, like it's not really going to be.
Where are they going to complain on? How they're going to complain on Reddit?
How's that?
But like the Christian Science Monitor wrote a review of the episode and said it was handled very, very well. And I mean, there's all this content out there about this particular episode of television. It was really interesting to fall down a little bit of a rabbit hole and read about it. I had no idea that I was gonna stumble across that as I was looking up Kay Callan, but.
I don't know. That's interesting.
And then after that, she's in all sorts of amazing stuff. Police Squad, Remington Steele, Moonlighting, Highway to Heaven, Night Court, Quantum Leap, Coach. She was in 87 episodes of Lois and Clark, the Dean Cain one, as Martha Kent. She played Clark Kent's mom.
Oh, yeah.
Dawson's Creek, CSI. Recently, she was in Knives Out. She's been in 3 episodes of Veep. She was in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, R.I.P. Andre Braugher, who just died this week also.
Oh, yeah.
I've been watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That show is, the first season's a little bumpy, but the after that, it really finds itself, and it's quite funny. I enjoy it a lot.
I like that show Veep. I've only seen a couple episodes, but it takes place in Washington D.C. and those are that's the way I think is more accurate probably than the West Wing.
No, I think it absolutely is more accurate than the West Wing. When you get a chance, you should watch the series. It is really something. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus is amazing in that show. Her timing and her ability to control her facial expressions is remarkable. I don't know how she said some of the things she said on that show without cracking up the entire time. I just don't know how she did it. So.
Did you watch the whole series? You watched the whole series?
We recently rewatched it. Yeah, we had started watching it when it was first airing, like back, many years ago, and we, for whatever reason, we stopped, and then we over the summer we started watching it again and watched the whole run, and it's very, very good. It gets a little bumpy at the end, but it's still very good. So.
That's good. Yeah. Like I said, I'd seen a couple of episodes and I'm just like, okay, I want to watch. I just haven't had time, but yeah, so that's cool.
It's funny. It's very, very funny. And Tony Hale's in it. I love Tony Hale, and Buster Blues can be no wrong as far as I'm concerned. So.
I've made a terrible mistake.
I never thought I'd miss a hand that much. But all right, well, that gets us through our episode basics, so that means it's time to take a quick trip back to the week of March 24th, 2015, and check out what was going on in popular culture at the time.
Are you telling me that you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
So the number one movie this week of March 24th, the Divergent series Insurgent, which seems like way too many gent words for a title. Like, you can't, I don't think that word, the Divergent series Insurgent. It's too much. It's a mouthful. And, but it did get $64 million at the box office, which is not bad. And then Cinderella, which was our number one last week, saw about a 50% drop to $44 million, which is still pretty respectable for a second week on in the theaters for a movie like that. So
I don't think I ever saw this. This is like one of those like dystopian future ones, like with the